Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. So, Sunday I tested a hollow cavity wadcutter. Now, this is not a hollow base wadcutter loaded backwards. These are cast by me in soft lead and swaged to this shape. And the cavity is much, much shallower than a hollow base wadcutter. And the bullet weight is significantly heavier. Hollow base wadcutters are 148 grains. This is 165. I loaded these into a 38 special case. I loaded them quite shallowly, relatively speaking, so that they match the overall length of a known load, the same 165 grain donor bullet over the same powder charge. And I wanted them to be the same length because of the known ballistics of this round. So, I test fired these over the chronograph, and from the custom Taurus with a 1.5-inch barrel, they made about 600 feet per second and penetrated 3-gallon jugs of water with very minimal expansion. So, gel testing was indicated. But I was well aware of the fact that 600 feet per second ain't much. And so I felt it was likely to underpenetrate, and I wasn't sure how much it would expand. So I loaded something a little peppier. It's the same bullet, this time seated deeper, because for some reason these won't chamber in my 642, and over 4.1 grains of W231 with the same CCI 500 small pistol primer. Now, the donor load for this is a Not-Plus-P load with a 170 grain bullet. So we're seated a little deeper, which is going to raise the pressure slightly, but it's also 5 grains lighter. This might be skirting the edge of a standard pressure load, which is the other reason I wanted to fire them in the 642. It's rated for 38 special plus P. And the 632 also has nearly 1/2 inch more barrel. We usually call this a 2-inch barrel. It's 1 7/8 inches. What's 1/8 of an inch between friends, right? And I tested that, and the results were, in a word, satisfactory. So, let's have a look at how I swaged the bullets, because someone asked, and then a quick look at the gel contraption setup, which I had not yet put the denim over. So I've had a request to show you my sophisticated high-tech swaging setup. This is a chunk of mild steel. I've bored a hole through the center and reamed it to 0.357 inch using a reamer on my drill press. This is the punch, which I turned out on my lathe out of 1/2 inch mild steel. So to use these, I take a cast bullet. Am I getting, yep, I've got that in frame. I drop it into the high-tech swaging die, and I hit it with a BFH. 3 hits, and we can see we're not completely filled out. Let's give it another tap. All right, and then I move it over the hardy hole in the anvil, put my hand under to catch the bullet, and knock it out. And the result, with a little bit of flash at the top where it went around the die, or where it went around the punch, is the bullet. So I clean up the top. As you can see, this is really soft lead, probably about 5 BHN, but I have no way of testing that. So that's the swaging process for the bullets. These then get coated with thoroughly coated with a spray lube, which is then allowed to dry, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, he's not really, but we tell people that to avoid awkward questions. So this is the gel setup. And it is a 4-inch square block, 16 inches long, and it is bottom, sides, and back is 2-inch solid maple, and another board of 2-inch solid maple goes on the top. So pretty safe to say that no pistol bullet that escapes from the gel block is going anywhere. Although it might knock the wood over. Who cares? So as you can see, after multiple recastings and being melted in a 70-year-old oven with dubious temperature control, the ballistics gel is quite dark. I did try to photograph the wound tracks and the bullets locations in the gel and everything, but it just wasn't going to happen. It's just too dark. It required a powerful flashlight to even locate the bullets. And so I did not include that in the video. I also didn't include shooting the gel block because with the gel so dark, it doesn't look like anything. And without high-speed photography, it's kind of anyway. So let's go to the tabletop and talk about the results. So the original test load, the 165 grain hollow cavity, is a known load that I use. This is a 165 grain bullet, round nose flat point, over 3.2 grains of red dot with a CCI 500 small pistol primer. And since I know this load works well, I loaded the modified bullet to the same overall length, same powder charge. And in the test gun, the 1.5-inch barreled custom Taurus Model 85, it averaged around 600 feet per second and penetrated 3 1-gallon jugs of water with modest expansion. So, the gel test. Expansion's pretty good. The average is around 0.55 inches, which is not bad. A little irregular. The bullet did lose some weight. It was nominally 165 grains. Now it's 159, so it lost 5 or 6 grains. Unfortunately, it only penetrated 9.5 inches, which does not meet FBI standards and makes it a little bit of a sketchy proposition. Now, aware that if this expanded, it would almost certainly underpenetrate at such a low velocity, I resolved to fire it out of my custom 642, which has a 1 7/8 inch barrel, which we are going to call a 2-inch barrel because who cares? So, unfortunately, because of the bullet profile, the original load does not seat in the 642. So I came up with a different load, seating the bullet deeper, but also realizing that I almost certainly was going to need more pep. I found a 170 grain load and adapted that to my purposes. Now, as you can see, the bullet's seated quite deeply, which probably ups the pressure a little bit, but this is probably still a standard pressure load. The 642 is rated for 38 special plus P, so even if it's pushing the limits a little bit on standard pressure, it's not bad. The load is 4.1 grains of W231 CCI 500 small pistol primer, and I was unable to chronograph these loads in the conditions in my shop today. So, based on the ballistics of the original 170 grain load, I'm going to guesstimate that these are coming out of the 2-inch barrel at around 700 to 725 feet per second. So how's that work? As it turns out, quite well. I fired 2 shots into the gel. This was the first, and as you can see, it has significant expansion. The average is around 0.55, 0.56 inches, and it penetrated 12.5 inches. And it did not lose a significant amount of weight. It's at 161.5 roughly, so it lost 3, maybe 4 grains. Not bad at all. Bullet number 2 lost a little more weight. In fact, it's at roughly 160 grains, so it lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 grains. And it achieved an average expansion of about 0.55. And it penetrated 14 inches, which is very pleasing to me. So, the concept is sound. The load actually appears to deliver the desired performance. And I'm going to have to call this one a success, which makes me happy. I gotta say, as a self-defense load for a snub-nosed revolver, it works. It performs to FBI duty spec and does what I'd hoped it would do. No way not to like that. So, before we wrap things up, I'd like to shout out to my supporters on Patreon. This all costs money, and your contributions help more than you know. I'd also like to thank those businesses and individuals that have been endlessly helpful by providing ammunition, allowing me to shoot their guns and show them to you, and any number of other really helpful things. So thank you all very much. Anyway, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon.